Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Erin Riley, Senior Vice President of Scenic Hudson, and we're delighted you could join us today. I'd like to thank Carolyn Birchfield and Thorin Christian-Daughter for providing us with this opportunity to share with you our work. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask after the presentation, please provide them in the Q&A section and we will get to as many as we can in the allotted time. We have been fortunate to have Ned Sullivan guiding Scenic Hudson for over 20 years. His leadership has resulted in countless successes in open space conservation, protected farmland, clean air, and clean water. What makes Ned such a strong advocate and an inspiration to the staff at Scenic Hudson is that he leads by example. He works tirelessly and steadfastly refuses to back down. At the same time, he understands the value of bringing people to the table. I know of no one more effective at forging strong and inclusive partnerships. But in the end, what makes Ned special is that he gets the job done, time after time. Whether it's halting an ill-conceived project like the St. Lawrence cement plant, or securing funds to transform a contaminated waterfront into an exciting park, he achieves victories that improve the health and quality of life of every Hudson Valley resident. The region is a far better place thanks to his 20 years at the helm of Scenic Hudson. Ned?
Thank you, Erin, and thank you for your great leadership at Scenic Hudson. And good morning, all. I'm thrilled to be with you this morning. It's a beautiful day here in the Hudson Valley, and I hope it is where you are. It's beautiful but brisk. Last weekend, I took a hike above Salisbury, Connecticut. I hiked the Mount Frizzle Brace Mountain Loop, and there were snow squalls throughout my hike. So we were constantly putting on our parkas, and then the sun would come out, we'd take them off. And during one part of the hike, as we approached the summit of Mount Frizzle, we could look down into the sun-bathed valley below in Salisbury and Lakeville. At another point later in the hike, there's a stone marker that is at the boundary of New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. And not far from there, we could look into Eastern Dutchess County and then off to the Catskills in the distance. So this reminded me and reminds me now of all that binds us together between the Hudson Valley and the northwest corner of Connecticut and the causes that have brought us together over many years. Okay, let's look at our first slide now. So Scenic Hudson was founded in 1963 to protect this beautiful mountain, Storm King. There was a proposal to build a power plant on the northern face of the mountain. The utility company that proposed the project would have blasted the northern face off of the mountain and pumped hundreds of millions of gallons of water out of the Hudson River, stored it in a reservoir created by flooding a forest, what is now Black Rock Forest, and then running the water down to turn a turbine and generate peak period power for New York City residents. Scenic Hudson gathered together people from all over the country, including the northwest corner of Connecticut, to stop this project. It took 17 years for us to win that war, if you will. But in the second year of the fight, our founders won a very important decision called the Scenic Hudson decision. It's still known as that in the law books today. And that established the very principle that citizens have a right to be heard on government decisions affecting the environment. That formed the foundation of the National Environmental Policy Act, this country's seminal environmental law that that really democratizes the environmental movement, gives each of you the right to stand up in a public hearing and say you're for or against a project. And there are also state laws like New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and similar law in Connecticut that enable you to be heard on these critical decisions affecting your community, its clean air, its clean water, and the kind of development that occurs there. Okay, next slide. So back in 1998, there was a proposal to build a massive coal-fired cement plant just outside of Hudson, New York. This threatened the iconic views from Olana and air quality, not just in the Hudson Valley, but throughout the Northeast United States, throughout New England. And this was a point when people from all around the region united to fight this bad idea. I recall one day when an expert working for St. Lawrence Cement, I believe he was a scientist from Harvard, stood up at a public meeting and said, hey folks, you don't need to worry about the air quality impacts of this proposed plant. It'll have a 400-foot stack. And on any given day, because the air currents carry the pollutants to the northeast region, all the pollution will be in Maine within 6 hours. So I had recently moved from Maine, where I was the environmental commissioner of the state, and to the Hudson Valley. And as I was fighting this fight, I heard those words, and I immediately called my former boss, Governor Angus King, and said, you won't believe what they just said, that this plant is going to be polluting the air from the Hudson Valley, across Connecticut, Massachusetts, all the way to Maine. So the governor said, Ned, draft the letter for me. I'll send it to Governor Pataki, and we'll fight this thing, and we won't give up until it's defeated. During that same period, people from the Hudson Valley, from Eastern Dutchess County, people like Frank Martucci, and from Connecticut, the Harney family, Donald Ross, Meryl Streep, all came together and rallied the citizens, rallied people to contribute to help us bring to bear the expert witnesses that would support our case to stop that plant. And indeed, we did ultimately defeat it in 2005 when the New York State Department said that the project would not only cause adverse environmental and health issues, it would also devastate the economy of the region. So I'm very, very thankful to our friends in the Northwest corner of Connecticut, and viewed that as a shared victory. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. So now we're fighting another proposed plant, another bad idea that could threaten the region. This is called the Danskammer Energy Project, and it's proposed for the town of Newburgh in Orange County, just south of Poughkeepsie. It's a 550 megawatt gas-fired plant that would use fracked gas. Now, New York State has banned fracking of natural gas because of the environmental and public health threats that it poses. And yet there is this proposal to permit and build a giant gas-fired plant that would, like the St. Lawrence cement plant, pollute the air, not only in the Hudson Valley, but in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and likely all the way to the state of Maine. So we have organized a coalition that is opposing this, of local leaders, regional leaders, environmental groups, and people who care about the economy of our entire region. And they're coming together. Scenic Hudson is going to actually be a formal intervener in the permitting of the project. And our intention is to have the same kind of victory that we had in the St. Lawrence cement plant. And we're hoping that the people in the northwest corner of Connecticut and throughout the entire region will come together again to stop this plant. So take a look at the website when you get a chance, stoptheplant.org. You'll see that the proposed plant, remarkably, would increase air pollutants, toxic air pollutants, by 25 times, and even more for greenhouse gases at a time when we are seeing the impacts of climate change. I mean, snow squalls in the northwest corner of Connecticut in May, and in the Hudson Valley. That's climate change, I believe. And we've got to stop this plant because it's going to cause that kind of change to continue. And also the very respiratory problems that are making people more vulnerable to the impacts of COVID-19 during the current health emergency. So we need your involvement, and I'd encourage you to stop the plant. Go to stoptheplant.org, sign up to get alerts, and help us defeat this. Okay, next slide, please. So we've recently gotten a hand from a beautiful article in Main Street Magazine, thank you so much to Thorin, that summarizes Scenic Hudson's work fighting threats like those I've just mentioned. But we also have a very positive mission of creating parks, conserving lands, saving family farms, and restoring riverfronts. The Hudson Valley is a tremendous resource and destination for people throughout the entire region. And so I encourage you to go online, read that story, and it tells you more information about how you can get involved in helping us stop that plant. Next slide, please. So Scenic Hudson has worked to preserve the landscapes of the Hudson Valley and surrounding some of the really iconic cultural and historic destinations that are very close to the northwest corner of Connecticut and Salisbury. This is a view from Olana, looking down at the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, the town of Catskill, and the Catskills in the distance. And there's been a great project completed over the last year called the Hudson River Skywalk. This was spearheaded actually by my wife, Tara Sullivan, who's leading the New York State Bridge Authority under Governor Cuomo. And it links up Olana, Frederick Church's home, with the Thomas Cole House, which is just on the other side of the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, with a beautiful walkway connecting the two. You can drive over, and on the east side of the bridge, there's a new roundabout where you can park and walk up a sidewalk to the northern carriage road up to Olana for fantastic views like this one. Then you can also walk down and go over to the Thomas Cole House and see the paintings of that wonderful founder of the Hudson River School of Painters. Okay, next slide. Oh, and you can see in the left-hand upper corner of this slide, all the areas in dark green or hatched green are lands that Scenic Hudson has protected surrounding the Thomas Cole House and the Frederick Church. And we're working on creating a trail from that roundabout and from Olana all the way up to the city of Hudson, and from the west side of the bridge to the village of Catskill. Next slide, please. So over its 57-year history, Scenic Hudson has protected more than 40,000 acres of land. These are beautiful parklands that protect the incredible biodiversity that we have here, the clean air and water that we all enjoy in the region. We have some 65 parks and preserves, many of which you can visit on our website. And over 18,000 acres of working farms, more than 125 working farms that provide fresh, healthy produce that is particularly crucial to both our cities and our towns and the neighboring state during the COVID emergency. Next slide, please. Over our history, Scenic Hudson has protected the tremendous waterfronts that we have, from Yonkers, where here you see 6 high-rise towers that were proposed back in the mid-'80s and that we fought and defeated. Okay, next slide, please. Instead, the Yonkers waterfront is open to the public. You have views like this one of the Palisades. There are beautiful restaurants on the waterfront, and Yonkers is just making tremendous progress. Okay, next slide, please. And you see here also Yonkers, a parking lot that is on top of a river, the Sawmill River, that once flowed freely through the city of Yonkers. And next slide. And this is the very same site where we have collaborated with the city of Yonkers, the mayor, Groundwork, Hudson Valley, and businesses to daylight the Sawmill River. So you can go and visit this, have a picnic overlooking the river, see the fish that are restored to the river spawning, and then walk down to the waterfront to see the great views of the Palisades. And there's also a wonderful Hudson River Museum not far. Okay, next. We've also had a transformative impact in many other communities. This is the Tarrytown waterfront before Scenic Hudson got involved, just above the former Tappan Zee Bridge. Okay, next slide, please. This is the same site now without the asphalt plant. And this is Scenic Hudson Riverwalk at Tarrytown. Okay, next slide. Here we have a before shot of the Irvington waterfront. And many of these places have wonderful restaurants that you can visit while you're visiting the park that we've created. Okay, next slide. Like this one, the Scenic Hudson Riverwalk Park at Irvington. Okay, next 2 slides. Here we have the Peekskill waterfront before. And next slide. And the Peekskill waterfront afterward. So this is Scenic Hudson Park at Peekskill. You're just looking up here to the southern gateway of the Hudson Highlands. This is the Beacon waterfront. Many of you have probably visited Dia Beacon. This is what the property just next to Dia Beacon looked like when we bought it. Okay, now, next slide. This is what it looks like now. A beautiful green park that has a river center that we use for education and art exhibits. And right next door is Dia Beacon. And Scenic Hudson played a pivotal role in bringing Dia to Beacon and transforming an abandoned Nabisco box factory into the world-class modern 20th century art gallery that it is today. Okay. This is a former railroad bridge that spans the Hudson at Poughkeepsie before and now. What it looks like now. Walkway over the Hudson, spectacular bridge, walking bridge spanning the Hudson. It's about over a mile long, and you can walk across it, you can bicycle across it, and it is still open now. It is a state park, a project of the Hudson Quadricentennial, the 400th anniversary of Henry Hudson's sail up the Hudson. So a spectacular state park that you can visit today. Next slide, please. And this is images of the Hudson River Skywalk that I mentioned earlier, spanning the Rip Van Winkle Bridge. And those are the views of the Catskills that I mentioned. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Scenic Hudson is also preserving family farms, both in the Hudson Valley and all the way to the Connecticut border. These provide fresh, healthy produce, and you can go to the next slide, please, that feed people all over the region, including New York City. We created a food shed conservation plan some years ago because we recognized that the Hudson Valley, like Northwest Connecticut, is part of an important agricultural region that feeds the valleys there, but also Westchester and New York City. And these have been particularly crucial in providing access to fresh, healthy food during the emergency. Okay, next slide. We're also working to revitalize the cities of the Hudson Valley. This shows a greenway that we're creating along a tributary of the Hudson, the Fallkill, that cuts through the north side of Poughkeepsie, and a rail trail that we have recently purchased with Dutchess County that will link up to the Fallkill and connect people across this part of the city. Next slide, please. Part of our mission is both to create great cities, but also to educate the young people and engage them in improving their own neighborhoods and getting skills that will help them get into college and get jobs. Next slide, please. We're doing this also in Newburgh, the city of Newburgh, where we've revived a once beautiful lake and park, and where we're creating a community farm in an urban area and also helping to revitalize the waterfront. Next slide, please. So the Hudson Valley and the Housatonic Valley also share a problem that they've been working for years to address, and that is General Electric's PCBs that have contaminated our rivers. And progress has been made in both areas. The Housatonic cleanup has made progress, and we have been successful in getting some pollution cleaned up in the Hudson. But the struggle continues, and it's important that we work together to ensure that our rivers are clean and that our sources of drinking water are not contaminated. And we see also on the left side of the slide an image of an oil tanker on the river at night. There was a proposal to allow the Hudson to become a parking lot for barges and tankers carrying crude oil down the Hudson that dramatically increased the risk of spills and would have damaged views from our cities and towns throughout the valley. And we were able to defeat that project, that proposal. Next slide, please. These are simulations of what those barges would have looked like on the Hudson, and images of cleanups going on around contamination, and image of a tanker cars going down the Hudson, and you see how vulnerable the river is in the event that there was an accident and one of those tanker cars ended up in the river. The impacts could be devastating. So we've made great progress in making these safer. Next slide, please. But these are times when the environmental safeguards dating back 50 years are threatened. We've seen over 100 federal rules and laws that have been diluted and by the federal administration. And it's crucial that we all unite between the Hudson Valley and Northwest Connecticut to protect the regulatory system that has been so crucial in our air and water quality for generations. Next slide, please. Okay, and let's keep moving on. Thank you. Next slide. So again, the success that we've had on the PCB front continues, and here you see young children fishing in the Hudson, but unfortunately the fish have to be thrown back in. You cannot consume the fish anywhere along the Hudson, and we're going to continue to fight that threat and ensure a clean and healthy Hudson until we achieve our goal. Next slide, please. The other big threat that we face is climate change. And Scenic Hudson has developed a number of strategies, and let's just keep moving through the slides now. To protect our waterfronts, we're bringing solar energy to communities. We're also conserving land that will ensure that the critical resources that we have in the region are protected as the climate changes. And we're working with the farmers in the region to ensure that agricultural practices, which under normal circumstances actually can cause climate change, are regenerative instead and can lead to actual reversal and sequestering carbon in the soil and in crops. Next slide, please. So in closing, I'd like to just encourage all of you to visit Scenic Hudson's website. We relaunched it some months ago, and it's a great way to visit, find places, great destinations to visit in the Hudson Valley, to learn about our campaigns, to learn how people throughout the region can unite to stop the plant, to create more parks, to protect working farms, and to ensure that the air and water quality that we all cherish are protected. Now, as we go through this COVID emergency, but also when we come out the other end and we can envision now and begin to implement a vision for a region and a country and a planet that is more sustainable, better air quality, clean drinking water for our children and our grandchildren. All right, thank you. Now I'd love to hear any questions that people have.
Thank you, Ned. That was great. We've actually had an inquiry about Cricket Valley plant. If you could update anybody on the latest in the fight against that.
Yes, so Cricket Valley, unfortunately, is at advanced stages of construction and will likely be very difficult to stop. The Scenic Hudson was fighting other battles at the time that the permitting was going on for Cricket Valley, and it is a plant like the new Danskammer plant that will have likely significant air quality impacts. And we've turned our attention to Danskammer because we feel that the combination of Cricket Valley and Danskammer would really have adverse impacts on the entire region.
And people are wondering how the pandemic has impacted the organization and our outreach capabilities and being able to engage the general public.
Thank you, Erin. So Scenic Hudson continues to keep its parks open. They have been hugely popular, and the challenge that we have faced, along with the New York State Park System and others who've kept parks open, is they're so popular, they're being a little bit overrun. But we have put up a lot of signs, and generally are finding that people are paying attention to our the admonitions of our governors to do social distancing and to wear masks. So we're thrilled that we're able to keep these resources open to the public, and people have found welcome escape from their quarantines and able to connect with the beauty of the region and the inspirational power of the Hudson while keeping socially distant. Scenic Hudson, the rest of our team is working remotely. Our parks team are considered essential employees. So they are out making sure our parks are in good shape and safe. But the rest of our staff are working remotely, and we're really staying engaged. All of our causes are making progress. And we hope all of you will stay engaged and continue to be supportive of our mission and engaged in collaborating with us, because it's crucial that we face issues like air quality from the proposed new power plant, because that will hurt our health, cause respiratory problems, like, as I said, 25 times the particulate emissions, 25 times volatile organic compounds. These are pollutants that directly affect the respiratory system, cardiovascular health, and send people to emergency rooms even when we're not in a corona emergency. So it's absolutely crucial that everybody stay involved and continue to help.
Ned, could you give a little update on the property in Kingston, just north of the Brickyards, which we're calling Quarry Waters?
Yes, Scenic Hudson last year acquired a 500-acre property that is going to be a spectacular new public park. We are working with New York State Office of Parks to make this a tremendous destination. It's a former industrial property, like many that you saw previously. It was a mining and cement making operation. And we are turning it into a park with a riverfront trail that will be part of the Empire Trail, running from the Battery all the way to the Canadian border and out the Erie Canal to Buffalo. And the waterfront will be one of the sections of that Empire Trail, accessible by bike and pedestrians. So we expect that part of the project to come online next year, early next year, and the rest to be developed over the next couple of years. But it's going to be a tremendous resource. If any of you have been to the Rondout section of Kingston, it's a beautiful historic area with a waterfront on a tributary of the Hudson called the Rondout, and a great museum, the Hudson River Museum, that you can visit and enjoy.
Thank you. We have a few on with us today who are advocates for the Hudson River Access Plan, which could be found at the hudsonriveraccess.org website. But I wonder if you might just talk a little bit about that as well.
Yes. So last year, Amtrak proposed to build fences and gates that would block people from getting down to the Hudson River, crossing their railroad tracks at grade crossings. There are many sites along the Hudson that are accessible across the railroad tracks, and the incidence of serious accidents has been relatively low, very low over the years. There have been some tragic accidents, but fairly infrequent. And Amtrak proposed this whole set of fences and gates that would have blocked public access to places that have been used as public parks for years, places like Germantown and Hudson, and this is largely between Rhine Cliff and Northern Columbia County and up to Rensselaer County. So a member of our team, Jeff Ansavino, spearheaded a project to gather public information about where people value getting access to the Hudson, and created a map of those places, and really a tremendous inventory that we're going to use as advocacy to both stop the Amtrak proposal from resurfacing again, because we were able to stop it the last time it was proposed. But we don't want Amtrak to bring it back. So we're going to be sharing that information with the Department of State that is in charge of the coastal program. And we're going to try to use it to enhance public access to the inspirational power of the Hudson River.
Thanks, Ned. In addition to our solar energy initiatives, can you speak to any of the renewable energy initiatives that include burning wood chips?
I'm not aware of wood chip projects in the Hudson Valley, but we've intervened on a number of different solar projects. There was a proposal in the Hudson area and another in the viewshed of the Thomas Cole House that were community scale solar that we were able to modify, and by working with the developers, so that views from the Plum Bronson House in Hudson and from the Thomas Cole House were protected. Some of the larger utility scale projects have larger impacts, and we're acting as formal interveners there to try to ensure that they will also protect critical habitat and views.
Great, thanks. And we also have a question about the tire burning facility at Lafarge in Ravenna. Have we heard anything further about that lately?
Yes, there is continued opposition to that. Disposal of used tires is a tremendous problem, but burning them can have very significant air quality impacts, as you can imagine. So there is significant local opposition to that, and no permits have been issued for that proposed enhancement of their fuel with tires.
That's great news. Well, I think we're probably done at this point. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have recorded this. There have been a couple inquiries if it will be available online, and we will be posting it to our website. So we encourage people to continue to check back. And again, we appreciate everybody's participation today. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, we encourage you to go to our website, scenichudson.org, and then stoptheplant.org, and to stay involved and stay healthy. So thank you very much for tuning in today.